Hello again. So we're going to do a couple more tags that we found. This came from Sarah's Tangled Tales and was originally created by the Writing Songbird, so I'll tag both of them. And then in terms of tagging, consider yourself tagged if you want to do this. This one is just a list of favorites, basically. So I have Sir Chonk here, so we'll kind of go through these 11 questions and then, see what you think. Number 1 and 2 are kind of the same question because it's what do you say is your favorite book and why, and what is your real favorite book and why. And so for me, I would say, usually there's some context there. So what I tell people is my favorite book is usually going to be based on that conversation, not because I'm changing my favorite book for other people, more just because, like, if somebody's talking about mysteries and they're like, what's your favorite mystery, then I'm going to say something different, just based on that context. But I would say generally my favorite books include Catcher in the Rye, Sun Also Rises, Neverwhere, Gone Girl, Lovely Bones, I'm thinking of Ending Things, Last House on Needless Street. I've gone over some of my favorite books before. So usually, I don't lie. I'm not going to be like, oh, my favorite book is The Sun Also Rises, but really it's like, I don't know, like the monster at the end of this book or something. Like, I like that book. I don't care. Like, I'm just going to tell her what, it is. But usually it changes just because of the context of the conversation. So, Sir Chonk, what about you?
I guess I have a few things that are in my favorite book pool, but if forced to pick one, I would go with Watership Down. Characters are amazing, story's great, setting's really cool. It's dark, but also optimistic at times. Just a great all-around book with some of my favorite characters and scenes. And the book that I say is my favorite book is Watership Down, because why am I going to say a different book than the book that's my favorite book? I don't understand people.
Okay, number 3. What is your favorite series and why? So my natural instinct is to say A Song of Ice and Fire, but it's not done. And so I don't know if it will actually be my favorite series. I loved the ending of Game of Thrones, and even though I addressed previously that I loved it, but, it was a little fast. I think the overall concept really worked for me. I thought it was very tragic, kind of Shakespearean, but, I'm not concerned about the plot ending in a way I don't like. I'm just concerned if I'm ever going to actually get one. So, there's a couple things I really like, but I'm probably going to go with Harry Potter just because I can't think of another time in history, and I don't think we'll ever see again, sort of like the excitement for Harry Potter. I was in college when the first book came out, and so I wasn't, young growing up with them, but it was just amazing to go to these book events. It would start at noon, and the book wouldn't come out till midnight, and people would spend all day there, and you'd have kids, 6 and 7 years old, all the way through people in their 70s and 80s, everyone just kind of all coming together to celebrate a book coming out. And obviously we do that for movies, people do that to buy concert tickets, but just the idea that people would cram into a bookstore with that kind of enthusiasm, and especially now, everybody's buying things on Kindle or they buy them digitally. I just don't know if we'll ever see anything like that again. And so, not only did I love the series, but I think that experience is very unique. So, Sir Chonk, what's your favorite series?
My favorite series would be the 2011 Stanley Cup Finals between the book series. There's not too many book series that I really like. There's plenty that I like. There's not very many that I really love a lot. I guess I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say the first 4 parts of the Dark Tower series, because those are awesome. There's 7 parts, but 5, 6, and 7 are a rotten bag of poop. So, yeah, don't read those. But the first 4 are awesome. So I'm going to pretend it only goes to 4 books, and then the rest of them get sucked into a vortex, or Stephen King got hit too hard by that van and never finished them. I don't know. First 4 books are great. Stop there.
All right. I hope he's getting picked up. I'm trying to figure out where the mic hole is. All right.
Mic hole?
Yeah, where the mic.
Ask Mike about that before we start investigating.
All right, number 4. Who is your favorite author and why? And this tends to vary, and a lot of my favorite authors only have a handful of books. I don't have a Stephen King who's written 50, 60 books that I can just keep going to their repertoire. So I love Hemingway, who I didn't used to like. I love Ian Reid. He has 3 books. I love Gillian Flynn. She has 3 books. I like Ruth Ware. She has like 10 or something. I like, I like Catriona Ward. She has a handful of books. So it kind of just depends where I'm at that moment. There are I have more go-to authors than like a favorite author just because, I love Neil Gaiman. I guess he has a pretty prolific, he does, he's got a lot. But yeah, I think I'm more like of a list of go-tos rather than necessarily like this is the one author I read everything by.
I guess my favorite author would be Ray Aloysius Bradbury. I don't think his middle name's actually Aloysius, but who knows? So yes, Ray Bradbury. He's got some of my favorite all-time books written by that dude. Some of my favorite all-time short stories written by that guy. Absolutely fantastic line-to-line writer. Even the books that he writes that aren't that great, I still enjoy reading because they're so well written. And just, an iconic dude who writes in a bunch of different genres as well. Bradbury's the man.
Okay, so number 5, what's your favorite genre and why? I don't really have a favorite genre, but I will say, I like dark books and I like depressing books. So I like mysteries and thrillers. I like horror. I like contemporary. But I like thrillers and mysteries and horror all rooted in reality. And I really especially like it when there's unlikable characters being awful people. Or at one point I was reading a summary of something and it was this girl locks herself in her room because she's sad and she's 16. And Sir Chunk was like, "You've read that, right?" And I was like, "No, I haven't read that one, but that tends to be where I go." So yeah, basically I always say I like girls going through some things. Those are the books I like.
Nice. My favorite genre, as Alex Trebek used to famously say, is horror. Love me some delicious horror. I love creepy settings. I like being scared. I like the whole vibe that comes with horror. Anything Halloween related, yup. Big old house, give it to me. Got a moon floating around? Yes, please. And also enjoy characters overcoming difficult odds, and that seems to pop up a lot in horror as well. Boop.
Okay. Number 6, who's your favorite character and why? I'm probably going to go with Holden Caulfield because he's always been my favorite character. Yeah, so I don't have a lot of other... I like a lot of characters, but whenever it comes back to it, it's going to be Holden.
I was unprepared to answer this question at this time. I'll probably change my mind in the future, but the first person that comes to mind probably isn't really the favorite character, but I'm going with Clarice from Fahrenheit 451. She's got about 6 lines. She's in about 3 pages. I just like the whole vibe that she represents and how it sort of motivates our boy Montag.
All right, number 7. What is your favorite book to movie adaptation and why? I don't like a lot of book to movie adaptations. I will say I think comic books and children's books tend to be better. I think because there's obviously comic books, they have the visual there already. And then children's books, I think there's room to make a full 2-hour movie, and add some things or change some things. And you don't have to do the same amount of cutting that you have to do with a big, literary fiction work. But I think the 2 that I really love are Muppets Christmas Carol, because I like any Christmas Carol adaptation. And at this point, I kind of think the movies are just adapting each other. I feel like nobody's even remembered to adapt the book anymore. But the Muppets do a pretty faithful adaptation, and also it's got Muppets. So, how can you not love it? And then The Incredible Journey was actually very well adapted into Homeward Bound. The Incredible Journey movie, the first one was okay, but the Homeward Bound's great. And it's before they started doing that weird CGI thing where the animals' faces would move when they talk. It's just voiceover for them, and that's way better because I don't want to see them with those fake animals moving their mouths. That's just nonsense and weird.
All right. Speaking of children's stories, my favorite book to movie adaptation is Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho, which is a totally decent book. I like the book, but I love the movie. They really upgrade the satire and the comedy. The book has satire and comedy in it, but it's next level in the movie. And obviously Patrick Bateman is a great character, and he really comes to life in the movie portrayed by Batman, ironically. Who'd have thought that Batman would kill people after he's so long saying he wouldn't? Liar.
All right, number 8. What is your favorite quote from a book and why? So this is way too hard to come up with. Like, I've thought about this a lot. I think at some point, Sir Chunk and I have already talked about maybe doing like our favorite 100 quotes. And that's just like a whole process to think of them, or even like best opening and closing lines. But I think I always kind of go back to like my favorite line being, and so we beat on boats against the current and borne ceaselessly back into the past, which may or may not be 100% accurate. I think I always flip the words from Gatsby, but I just love that quote. I think it says so much just about, nostalgia and the impact of nostalgia, and even just like living your life and trying to like, I guess the futility of trying to accomplish what you think that when you were young and hopeful, what you thought your life would be, and continuing on, even though like, you're clinging to essentially this ideal that you're never going to get back to.
All right, I guess I don't know if this counts as cheating or not. I'm going with a play. I'm going to go with, and yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights, not me. Different vibe off of, or sort of different angle, sort of similar to the Gatsby quote, where the dude's kind of like, bruh, this stuff all blows, right? Which, you can pull almost any quote out of Hamlet, and it's going to be great, but still, that's probably my favorite.
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing soliloquy, for sure. Or monologue, I guess, technically, because he's not alone. Number 9. What is your favorite book cover and why? So, weirdly, I think I'm more... One thing I don't like on book covers is, like, the movie adaptation. But one of the things I tend to go for is, like, very minimalist and simplistic. Unless there's, like, gaslights in London, then I'm, like, sucked in. Because I'm like, oh, hats in London and, like, spooky. I do like The Last House on Needless Street, the hardcover with the green one, where you can see the cat and the house. It's got the right mood. I think it captures it really well. But usually, like, I like Catcher in the Rye's cover, like the white one, where it just says Catcher in the Rye, and you're like, well, what does that mean? What is this book about? I don't know, because it's just a random white cover with a line. Or, like, Gone Girl is just, like, a black cover with a line. I think that's really... I'm really, like, attracted to that in a book, because I think what it does is it essentially is, like, this book is vague and ambiguous, and you're going to have to, like, come up with your own ending and your own themes, and I like that. I don't really like people on covers either.
I can't think of a specific cover that I like, but basically similar to what I said about horror, give me a graveyard or some mist in a moon, maybe a lightning bolt, a big old creepy house, any combination of those things, and I'm going to like the cover.
All right, number 10, what's your favorite trope and why? And this is hard for me because whenever I think of tropes, I think of romance and, like, love triangles or friends to lovers or enemies to lovers. And I don't like romance. So, like, most of those tropes, I'm just like, meh. But I do like the hero's journey archetype, which is less of a trope and more just like the foundation of most storytelling. Because even if it's not fantasy, even if it's not your Harry Potter or Star Wars, I mean, most books kind of do follow a hero's journey archetype. The protagonist sets out, they have a conflict, they're discovering themselves. I mean, you can kind of apply that even to like contemporary coming of age stories. But I was thinking about it too, and I guess I do like I don't know if it's a trope, but like, they move back to a small town, but there are secrets. Like, if there's a small town with secrets and everyone's keeping secrets and there's an underlying, darkness to this quaint small town, or like, oh, they move back to the beach and it's a small town and people come for the summer and everyone has secrets. Yeah, I like people with secrets in small towns.
All right. I don't like too many tropes like most people. I guess I think of two that are decent. One is like you've got the character that seems like they're weak and like can't help themselves out, but in reality they're actually able to suddenly defend themselves in some way or figure something out they didn't expect. I don't know, like the unexpected turn of like the character you didn't expect much from, I guess. That's one.
The Neville.
Yeah, like Neville chopping that snake. Spoiler, right? That was pretty cool. And I also like the classic novel trope where the protagonist is like, I figured out who the killer is, and he's immediately crushed by a grand piano. Man, that happens all the time. Love that one.
Right. And finally, who is your favorite book couple and why? So I don't like romance, and I don't like couples, and I don't like romance subplots either. I'm like just like whenever I'm looking at a summary and I'm totally sucked in, and then there's a line where it's like, and it's an enduring tale of love. I'm like, I'm out. Like, I just do not care about love. I'm sorry. So I thought of two couples that I really like, and they're both totally messed up, and so they're both from A Song of Ice and Fire, and the first is Jamie and Cersei, which I guess is a romantic couple, but it's incest and it's super weird and creepy. But for some reason, I think because it's so tragic, like I can't help but root for them because it's like they're destined to lose and they're destined to fail, and like that to me, I guess, is like, oh, that's so sad. And I just also love the Lannisters. So, and then the other couple, who isn't really a couple, but just a pairing, is I love Arya and the Hound together.
Be stealing mine.
I think they're just a really good pair. They blend well together and they bounce off each other pretty well. So, those are my pairs that I like. I would say more than book couples.
All right, so Coleridge Girl just straight up ripped mine off, which she probably knew she was doing. So now I shall pivot and come up with a couple off the top of my head. And all right, here's a couple. They're not actually a couple, but they're best buds, and it's Bigwig and Hazel, once again from Watership Down. They both have very different skills, but they work together so well. They're awesome. Bunny couple. And the other couple I would go with is the Sword and the Stone. Because, man, that sword loves being all deep up in that stone.
Okay, that was weird. You know who I also like, and maybe you can remember their name, but the couple of bad guys from Neverwhere.
I knew you were going to say it's Krauts? Tall guy and short guy. I can't remember.
Yeah, they're like really funny.
I thought of them too, but also couldn't remember their freaking names.
Yeah, I can't remember their names either. But anyway, what are your favorites? What do you like? What do you hate? Do you think our picks are terrible? Do you think we're like, I'm a weirdo because I am rooting for Cersei and Jamie, even though it's gross?
You also find Sword and the Stone erotic.
Okay. Anyway, tell us what you think. What are your favorites? All right, bye.